So let us see the questions. Money power still influences election process in India. Do you think electoral bonds can be a solution for this? Discuss. So what did the government do recently? Recently the government introduced electoral bonds scheme to reduce the influence of money power and also to make the election funding more transparent. So how do we start our answer? We start our answer by saying that in the recent elections held to Lok Sabha, all political parties combined together had spent around close to 60,000 crores. All of them had spent close to around 60,000 crores. Whereas the amount of donations they had collected combined together were less than 5,000 crores. The amount of donations they had collected were less than 5,000 crores. So the remaining amount of money is only what we call black money. So two things we have to do here. One is how to reduce money power in elections. Second one is how to eliminate black money in elections. These two things. So the government had come out with a solution called electoral bonds. What the government has said is that everyone can buy these electoral bonds. When they buy these bonds, they have to give their PAN number, they have to give their Aadhaar, and they have to make payments only through checks from bank accounts. And these bonds will be issued only by public sector banks. And these bonds, they can always mention the names of the beneficiaries, whether it is Congress party or BJP or any political party. They can always mention the names of beneficiaries. And these political parties, they can encash these bonds within a stipulated time period. And the objective the government says is here is that to ensure that the black money in elections will come down drastically. But did it really prove to be beneficial or not in the elections? Definitely not. Why? Because if you look at almost 80% of the bonds in the recent elections have gone to only one single political party. We don't have to name the political party, all of us know who got the money. And second thing is that the main purpose of election process to ensure transparency is not achieved. Why? Because the names of donors will be kept a secret. The names of donors will be kept secret. The political party can only encash these bonds. They don't know the names of the donors. The names will be kept secret. So, and whereas since these bonds are issued by public sector banks, automatically the government and the ruling political party will come to know about the ruling political party will come to know about the names of the donors. It can result in what we call political witch hunting also. Ruling political party can go against those businessmen who have donated money to rival political parties also. So obviously it will not help in achieving the objective of reducing money power nor ensuring transparency in political funding. So what is the ultimate solution? Electoral bonds definitely is not the solution. So what is the solution? We have to amend section 29 of Representation of People's Act. Section 29 of Representation of People's Act should be amended. What are the sections is now? Political parties can receive money in the form of cash for less than 2,000 rupees, small donations. And when they are receiving this money, they don't have to mention the names of the donors, and they don't have to receive this money in the form of checks. It can be received in the form of cash only. And this loophole has been ruthlessly exploited by every political party. Smaller parties like BSP, SP, NCP, the regional political parties, they said that they got 100% of donations only from cash donations, completely black money. 100% donations are cash donations. And then again under Representation of People's Act, section 1951, a candidate has to spend only 70 lakh rupees in Lok Sabha elections. But if you look at 60,000 crores of rupees, it means that a candidate must have spent at least 60 crores. The limit is only 70,000 rupees, but they must have spent at least 60 crores. Why this discrepancy? Why? Because this 70 lakh rupees includes only the expenses of the candidate. It does not include the money spent by the political parties. So if you want to ensure clean political system, you must include the expenses of the political parties also in the expenses of the candidates, so that the accounts they submit to election commission look logical and reasonable. Otherwise, when they they go for a swearing in ceremony, it always starts with blatant lies when they submit the affidavits to the election commission regarding their expenses. That is the reason why what we are saying is that on the revenue side, they cannot receive even a single rupee in the form of cash. You must amend section 29 of RPA and ensure that they don't receive even a single rupee also in the form of cash. Everything should be received only in the form of check, and it must be clearly revealing the names as well as PAN numbers of the people who are donating the money, so that there cannot be any scope for black money. Second, on the expenditure side, what we have to do is that political parties must spend all their monies only in the form of checks, through checks, not in the form of cash. This is what another thing. And the third thing we are saying here is that this limit can be increased by including the expenses of political parties also, so that our election system becomes more transparent, more efficient and more accountable also. You have to write all these things. I am definitely expecting one question this year about this role of money power in elections. Next, governor's position has been politicized due to his appointment and removal, along with his discretionary powers. Suggest solutions. Again, this is expected this year because of what is happening in states like Karnataka or Gujarat or most of other states, wherein governors have used their discretionary powers to benefit the ruling political party at the center. So how do I start my answer? You start your answer with 1967. 1967 was the year when what we can call it as a watershed year as far as Indian politics are concerned. Why? Because from 1967 onwards, all the articles related to discretionary powers of constitutional authorities have become more controversial from this time onwards. All articles related to the discretionary powers of constitutional authorities, they had become controversial. Why? Because for the first time in 1967, in 9 states, opposition parties had come to power, and that is when the union government started misusing Article 356. They started misusing Article 356. That is the reason why, after that, so many commissions and committees went into this the discretionary powers of governor. Sarkaria Commission, then Punchi Commission, then Second Administrative Reforms Commission. All of them have pointed out the major weaknesses here. The first thing is that our constitution, Article 163, gives huge amount of discretionary powers to governor without making him accountable for his performance. It gives huge amount of discretionary powers without making him accountable. Second thing, the second problem is that there is no proper procedure laid out in the constitution regarding appointment and removal of governors. There is no proper procedure for appointment and removal of governors. Why? Because when the Constituent Assembly discussed about governors, even though Constituent Assembly had spent around 3 years to frame our constitution, this governor was discussed only for 1 day. That is the reason why you can see the articles related to governor were completely ambiguous. It was only discussed for 1 day in the assembly, and it was based on the assumption that Congress party would be in power both at the center as well as in the states for always, for all the time. And that was the reason why they never thought that governor's position would become controversial. That is the reason why they did not spend too much amount of time on the discretionary powers of governor also, neither his appointment nor removal. And over a period of time, especially from 1967 onwards, this has become extremely controversial because governors started acting more as representatives of a ruling political party at the center than as custodians of constitution. So what are the solutions that we are suggesting here? In terms of appointment, this is what the Sarkara Commission, Punchi Commission as well as second ERC have said. First and foremost, they said that a person from any eminent walk of life should be appointed as governor. A person from any eminent walk of life should be appointed as governor. Second, that person should be a political person. That means a non-political person should be appointed as governors. Third, if you are appointing a person as governor, a political person, he must not have participated in politics in recent times. He must not have been active in politics in recent times. And next thing is that person from the same state should not be appointed as governor also. Person from the same state should not be appointed as governor. And as far as removal is concerned, what is the procedure for removal of governor? The governor stays in power for a period of 5 years or as long as he enjoys the confidence of the president, in reality that of the prime minister. So what is the recommendation here? The governor should also be removed like that of a judge of Supreme Court, so that we can ensure independence of the constitutional office here, so that the central government cannot remove governors as and when they want. He should be removed like that of a judge of the Supreme Court. And that means impeachment procedure, the same kind of impeachment procedure, so that he can have what we call security of tenure. He can have security of tenure. Next thing is this Sarkara Commission as well as the Punchi Commission, all of them had come out with a criteria regarding the use of discretionary powers of governor also. Whenever any political party loses majority, it should be tested only on the floor of the house. The majority of the government should all be tested on the floor of the house, but not in Raj Bhavans. It should be tested only on the floor of the house. And then they had to come out with a criteria also. Single largest party should be invited to form the government. If a single largest party does not command a majority, pre-poll alliance. If a pre-poll alliance is also not there, then post-poll alliance, with all coalition partners being part of the government to ensure stability of the government also. Like this, these commissions and committees had come out with suggestions. Next thing is that they also suggested that governors should be given post-retirement benefits also, pension, so that they don't have to worry about what they should do after their term is over. They cannot come back to UPSC and start preparing. So they need some kind of post-retirement benefits also in the form of pension. This is what you have to write for this question. Next, Ayushman Bharath is necessary but not sufficient to ensure better healthcare in India. Discuss the need for reforms in the health sector and provide solutions. So the question says that Ayushman Bharath is definitely a very important scheme, but it is not sufficient. Why? Because it does not address the basic healthcare issues in India. So what are basic healthcare issues? What are the basic healthcare issues in India? Especially this year again you can expect a question, because what happened in Bihar? More than 150 children died in government hospitals. So what are basic healthcare issues? First one is awareness. In India, ordinary people are not aware about health problems. There is lack of awareness among the people about the health. It can be about basic health issues or even the complicated ones also. Lack of awareness. Why this awareness is not there? For the simple reason that illiteracy, lack of awareness. So obviously, when they don't, when they are not aware about the health issues, it is difficult for them to find solutions also. Unless you know the problem, then only you can come out with a solution. Even now in the Bihar, the death of children in Bihar, the government says something. The ground reality is completely different. The government had said that all the children were eating lychee fruits, and suddenly they had become poisonous. Lychee fruits, nobody could ever imagine in their dreams that this kind of lychee fruits can become so poisonous that they can take away the life of the people also. The problem there is that they don't have nutritious food. The problem is that the primary health care centers simply are completely ineffective in Bihar. The government does not want to accept. People are also not aware. The basic problem with India is that in India people have not had that kind of awareness that health can become a major electoral issue also. Since independence till now, in the last 70 general elections, no political party fought elections on the basis of providing safe health care to citizens. All elections are fought only on the basis of providing food and more food. Beyond that, nothing else. Food Security Act. That is where the problem. And lack of awareness among the people, and also unaccountability on the part of the political system. The second problem is access to health care. Again, if you look at it, the problem here is that you take any part of India, especially in rural areas, access to health care is almost non-existent. We have primary health care centers, community health care centers, district health care centers, and then at the state level you have institutes will be there, All India State Institutes of Management, Medical Sciences. At the central level we have in Delhi All India Institute of Medical Sciences. So this is the trick. So if you look at it, in all these aspects, if you look at it, the basic problem is lack of access. If you look at primary health care centers, if there are doctors, there are no medicines and there is no equipment. And in most of the places, India is one of those countries wherein the doctor patient ratio is one of the worst in the world. And especially again there are so many regional inequalities also. For example, in states like Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, we have out of around 16,000 people, one doctor is there. Whereas according to World Health Organization, it should be for 1,000 people there must be one doctor. So obviously access to basic health facilities. This is another problem. And the third problem is as we have said, absence of human power. In terms of skilled professionals, neither doctors nor nurses nor other medical staff. Absence of human power. And fourth problem is affordability. Simply, healthcare in India is extremely a costly affair. It is extremely costly affair. Again, according to the recent survey, in India, almost 67% of the expenditure spent by the poor people is only on health care. Why? Because the government health care, the quality is so bad that they don't want to go to government hospitals. On the other hand, if they had no option but to go to government hospitals, you know what happens, like what happened in Bihar. So affordability is another major issue. And the last one, as we say, is accountability. There is no accountability of personnel working in the healthcare system, right from the attender working in primary healthcare offices, primary healthcare centers, the attender, to the health minister. There is no accountability. And health is part of which list? State list or concurrent list? State list. And there is no coordination between the center and states also. Why? Because Ayushman Bharath is a central scheme, and this central scheme is part of an item which is in the state list. So that is the reason why the state governments are also not really interested in implementing the schemes also. So the next question that we are asking here is, does Ayushman Bharat addresses all these problems or not? Obviously not. It does not addresses all these problems. That is the reason why we say that it is necessary but not sufficient. So what are the other reforms that we have to ensure? The simple is we always say good governance. It should start at the lowest level. It will be starting at the lowest level. That is what we say. How to come out with solutions. Public-private panchayat partnership in rural areas. Public-private panchayat partnership in rural areas. What is this public-private panchayat partnership in rural areas? As part of long-term solution to the health problems. The governments, both central and state, are spending a lot of money on healthcare sector, but it is not resulting in outcomes. Outlays are not transformed into outcomes. So what is the solution? Let private sector run the healthcare centers. You can through public-private partnership, you can give them. Every month you can give 1 lakh rupees, 1.5 lakh rupees. Let the private sector run the healthcare centers. Let the people decide the quality of services to be provided by the private sector in consultation with the government. In consultation with the government. Let people decide the quality of services to be provided by the private healthcare sector in consultation with the government. And let panchayats make these healthcare centers accountable for their performance. And let the money, government will give money to the private sector. Why? Because government hospitals have failed. Government healthcare system has failed. The government healthcare system did not penetrate up to the lowest level. So let the private sector go there, because private sector will go to all those places where they can see profit for themselves. So the government give the money to the private sector and let the people decide the quality of services, and let panchayats make this private sector accountable for their performance in terms of providing services. This is only the long term solution. And secondly, you have to say that the government must also spend more money on health. Even among the SAARC countries also, India is one of those countries which spends least on health. But the problem here is that what is the amount of money that the government is spending? These outlays are not transformed into outcomes. To transform these outlays into outcomes, you require public-private panchayat partnership. We can solve all these problems: awareness, accountability, affordability, accessibility, and personal also. Why? Because the money will be given to the people who are running this healthcare center, provided the panchayat will do what is called social audit to see whether people are satisfied with the services. So private sector, unless it is efficient, it cannot survive. Automatically it results in efficiency, it results also in accountability. In Bihar, nothing happened to all those doctors who were responsible for the death of those children or those hospitals. They keep on running. That nothing. Only the government, in order to reduce the anger of the people, will suspend some medical superintendent for some time. Next day he will get promotion also. It will never be reported in the newspapers. Earlier it was Gorakhpur in Uttar Pradesh, then Bihar. It can happen in any state also. In Madhya Pradesh, even the rats were eating the bodies of patients also in government hospitals. The rats, live patients who are alive, they were eating. Why this kind of thing? Because there is no accountability in the system. Why there is no accountability? None of these health professionals, health institutions are not accountable to, none of them are directly accountable to the stakeholders. This is the solution you have to write. As I said, again I am expecting this question this year in your examination. Very, very important. Yeah. Yes, that is the reason why there is so much to write. That is the reason why don't give too much of explanation. Public-private panchayat partnership in health sector can provide solutions to the problems of accountability, participation, accessibility and awareness. Simple. Next, three language formula is necessary to ensure national integration, but at the same time it should not be imposed from above. Discuss. Again, the national education, draft national education policy talks about three language formula. It talks about so many things. Unfortunately, all other things that it has mentioned had gone into background because of the controversial recommendations saying that three language formula. This three language formula was there right from 1960s onwards. You have to go back. When we adopted constitution in 1950, it was decided that English and Hindi would continue to be the languages of communication of the central government for a period of 15 years. For 15 years, English and Hindi continue. After 15 years, English would be replaced only with Hindi. So, in 1965, when the central government was taking this decision, to remove English and using only Hindi in communication between the center and the states, obviously there was a stiff opposition from South Indian states. In Tamil Nadu witnessed so much of violence. At that point of time, Indira Gandhi was Information and Communication Minister in Lal Bahadur Shastri government. She went to Madras. In those days it was called Madras. She had to pacify the people there. And the parliament is mostly dominated by politicians from North India. They were hell-bent on introducing this Hindi as the only language. Obviously, finally, Lal Bahadur Shastri, the Prime Minister, it was decided that the three language formula would continue. That is, communication would be there in Hindi, English as well as local languages. At the same time, when it comes to education also, in order to encourage the use of Hindi, the government wanted to introduce this three language formula for children, especially in primary sector, primary level. That means they would be taught their regional language, mother tongue, then English as well as Hindi also. So it was decided that Hindi would be made compulsory for people from non-Hindi speaking states, whereas it was also decided that for people who are in Hindi belt, it should be made mandatory that they must learn any other regional languages. In fact, when the discussion was taking place in Rajya Sabha some time back, Rajya Sabha chairman Venkaiah Naidu, he scolded MPs. Why? Because MPs were talking about regional languages. He said that there are no regional languages in India, all of them are Indian languages only. Along with Hindi, everything is also an Indian language only. Whether it is Tamil or Telugu or Malayalam or Bengali, they are all Indian languages, they are not regional languages. So the moment you say regional languages, it is what we call parochial attitude, thinking that you are superior and others are inferior. That is the reason why this three language formula that they wanted to introduce in the 1960s itself, but again it faced a stiff opposition from South Indian states, especially Tamil Nadu. They did not accept. They did not accept imposition of Hindi. They said that we will not accept this imposition of Hindi. And later, the government wanted to introduce in other states. In other states, it was slowly introduced, but it was not that much successful. And on the other hand, in North Indian states, the government never took the initiative to introduce other Indian languages in the academic curriculum of children in North Indian states. As I said, as part of three languages formula, people from North Indian states should be learning other Indian languages of their choice, anything. And people from non-Hindi speaking states should be learning Hindi. But it was never implemented. Again, the issue had become controversial recently as part of draft national education policy, wherein it is suggested that Hindi should be made compulsory as part of the three language formula for primary school children. So the question says is that definitely the entire country with so much of diversity in terms of language, it is better to have one common language, but it cannot be imposed unilaterally on the people. On the other hand, to ensure national integration, what is required is that people from other North India, they must be able to learn other languages also. If the government at all wants to implement three language formula, it will not face opposition provided the government also makes it mandatory for people from Hindi speaking states to learn any other national languages, so that it will reduce opposition. It will reduce opposition. That is what you have to write for this question. Yes. Nothing. It was not implemented. It was there, it was not compulsory. As I said, in Tamil Nadu it is not there. In Karnataka it is not there. In Andhra Pradesh they have implemented it. Kerala they did not. Yes. Yes. That is what I am saying. People from other parts of the country are willing to learn Hindi provided people from North India learn their languages. That is what we say through consensus. On the other hand, if the union government tries to impose it, it can result in what is called balkanization of the country. Division of the country on, earlier we had seen the division of the country on communal lines, Pakistan. Now division of the country on linguistic lines. Because language, religion, caste, all these are all highly emotional issues. Yes. Yes, why people from North India don't learn other, that is the same thing. Identity. It is like, imperialism. Why there is so much of opposition to imperialism? The same thing. Right? You have to put yourself in the shoes of the person being exploited to understand those things. Right? Britishers can never understand what is this imperialism, why there is so much of hue and cry about imperialism, because they were on the other side. Had they been part of this exploitation, then they would have understood. See, the problem is that all other languages, whether it's Bengali, Odisha or Odia or Marathi, they are related to Hindi somewhat, whereas Dravidian languages are not at all related to Hindi. What is the common between, say, Hindi and Tamil? That is why they wanted to protect their identity, and they believe that Hindi is a language which had come into existence only recently. Hindustani, it had come into existence only, during the times of Mughals. Yes, during the times of Mughals. Whereas Tamil is a language which is there for 5,000 years. So why should they learn a language which is, very new? Yeah, Tamil is the oldest language. Why should they learn? Let Hindi speaking people learn Tamil and become cultured. That is what they say. Right? Next, recent amendments to RTI, according to activists, will reduce the effectiveness of the landmark legislation. So what are those recent amendments and why the fears are expressed by RTI activists? What are the amendments? The amendments are related to the appointment, salary and other service conditions of Central Information Commissioner and State Information Commissioner and the members. So what is the argument of the central government here? The argument of the central government here is that they are not changing anything which ensures the independence of RTI or Information Commission. Where do we find the independence of Information Commission? In the section 4 of RTI. They are not making any changes to section 4 of RTI. The only changes they are making here is that they are saying that this Information Commission, Central Information Commission, State Information Commission are statutory bodies. What they are saying is that the Central Information Commission and State Information Commission are statutory bodies. As statutory bodies, their salary and other service conditions should be like that of any other statutory body. Their salaries and other service conditions should be like that of any other statutory body. That is what the central government is saying. At present, what about their salary and other service conditions? They are determined like that of the salary and other service conditions of this RTA, CIC members and SIF members will be like that of Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners. Now, what the government is saying that there are so many other statutory bodies. You have National Human Rights Commission, National Green Tribunal. We have so many regulatory authorities. Their salary and other service conditions are different. So they wanted to ensure that there is uniformity among all these statutory bodies. And that is the reason why central government has said that they will decide the appointment like in case of any other statutory body, they will decide the appointment, they will decide the salary and other service conditions. And they have assured that they will not be reducing the salary to the disadvantage of the election, these commission members. At present, say if one information commissioner is getting say 1.5 lakh rupees per month salary, in the new regime, the government is saying that their salary definitely will not be less than 1.5 lakh rupees. And earlier, their term is for 5 years or 65 years, whatever it may be. Now, central government will said that, has said that they will decide the term like for any other statutory bodies. Their term also will be decided by central government. Not only that, the RTA bill not only talks about Central Information Commission, it also includes the State Information Commission. The salary and the other service conditions of State Information Commission members also will be determined by the central government. That is what the changes that were proposed by the government. And this is the logic argument given by the central government. They are saying that we are not touching anything related to the independence of Information Commission. We are trying to make things much more consistent, because like any other statutory body, this Information Commission also should have the same kind of service conditions as well as appointment procedures. But what is the apprehension of these NGO activists? Why they are against the changes of the central government here? What is the apprehension? What these activists are saying is that the independence of Information Commission is ensured on the basis of two things. One is security of tenure. Second, salary and other service conditions. Security of tenure and salary and other service conditions. If you look at the governance structure in India, we have three different kinds of bodies. One is constitutional bodies, second one is statutory bodies, third, those institutions that had come up by an executive resolution, presidential resolution. Constitutional bodies enjoy maximum amount of autonomy in their functioning, and their salary also is charged from the Consolidated Fund of India, and their salaries cannot be reduced to their disadvantage during their tenure, everything so on and so forth. Whereas statutory bodies, salary other service conditions will be determined by the government, and they have less autonomy compared to constitutional bodies. Why? Because Parliament from time to time can make changes to their functions, their powers, responsibilities, salary and other service conditions. And bodies which have been created by an executive resolution, they will be working directly under the government, so there is no autonomy for them. Now, what our RTI bill 2005 has done is that even though RTI was created as a statutory body, it was given constitutional status in terms of their functioning. It was given constitutional status in terms of their functioning. And what this amendment has done is that it has taken away this constitutional status, which is necessary to ensure independent functioning of information commissioners, which is necessary to ensure in the independent functioning of these information commissioners. This is where the problem with the changes that have been made by the government. Government logic is completely different, and in terms of what the NGO activists are saying. These NGO activists are saying that this is the way through which the government wanted to have control, full control over information commissions, by making them nothing but an extension of government departments. By deciding their salary, appointment and other service conditions. Not only that, this changes to RTA bill is also against federalism. Why should the central government decide salary and the service conditions of state information commissions also? So, in recent times, central government found it difficult, with that is what RTA activists are alleging. They found it difficult because of too much of transparency in administration, which is making the governments accountable. That is the reason why they wanted people, whom they can manipulate. Already you can see RTA activists are saying that already you can see election commission. In the recent elections, election commission has been questioned for its credible functioning, independent functioning. Election commission being a constitutional authority could not ensure their own independence. What about the statutory authorities like RTI, CIC, when their freedom is independence is taken away through these kind of amendments? That is what you have to write. So what is your conclusion? What should be your conclusion? The conclusion is that the government should always ensure transparency, because transparency is one of the key features of good governance. One of the important features of good governance. Next, fight. Yeah, but again the problem is that it is only 150 words. It is difficult for us. If at all, if you want to write some kind of recommendations, don't go beyond the second ERC report on RTI, right information. What did second ERC say? It has said that strengthen the information commission rather than taking away its powers. Give more powers to information commission. Importantly, give more financial powers to information commission so that they can appoint more people and look into the cases better. Already 65,000 cases are pending with information commissions. That is what you say. Instead of weakening information commission as recommended by second ARC, government must strengthen independence of information commissions. Next, fight against corruption must ensure proper balance between efficiency of officials in taking decisions and their accountability. Discuss the recent changes made to the Prevention of Corruption Act with reference to the above. So, this Prevention of Corruption Act 1988, PCA 1988, the government recently made some changes to the PCA 1988, and again, those NGOs which are fighting against corruption, they said that these changes would weaken PCA, Prevention of Corruption Act, by giving more protection to officials. Now, first let us look at the argument of the government, why the changes are made. The government has said that it wanted to protect honest officials. From witch hunting? It wanted to protect honest officials. Similarly, retired officials should also have peace of mind. Those who retired should also have peace of mind. Third, the government says that officials are not willing to take decisions for fear of CAG and CBI, resulting in officials are not willing to take decisions for fear of CAG and CBI, resulting in policy paralysis. And fourth, false allegations against officials. Which is coming in the way of their career progression also. Why? Because once a complaint is filed with the Vigilance Commission or Vigilance Cells, your promotions will be stopped till the final investigation is over and you are declared innocent. So that is the reason why the government has said that they wanted to come out with amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988. So what did the government do? The first thing the government has said is that if CBI or any other investigative agency wants to file charges against officials, they must take permission from the head of the department. This was what we called a single directive, which was struck down by Supreme Court in 1996 as part of a Jain Hawala case. The government had included that in rules and regulations, saying that if CBI wants to investigate any officials, earlier, from the rank of Joint Secretary and above, now any official, not only Joint Secretary, any official, if the CBI wants to investigate, they must go to the head of the department and seek, the approval of that head of the department, the minister, to proceed again, to file, cases against them. That is what the government has said. Why? Because the government wanted to protect officials from false allegations. Second thing is that, this rule will apply not only to those serving officers, but also to retired officers also. It will apply to retired officers also, retired officials also, so that cases will not be filed against them. Third thing is that, earlier in the Prevention of Corruption Act, section 13(1)(d), I think it was section 13(1)(d). What it says is that even if the official is not benefiting in monetary terms or otherwise for himself or for his people, close people, if he is causing a loss to the exchequer, the treasury of the government, with his decisions, cases can be filed against him. Cases can be filed against him even if he is not benefiting out of the decisions that he has taken, if it results in loss to the exchequer. Now, the government wants, as part of PCA, the government wants to differentiate between decisions taken with bona fide intentions, and decisions taken with malified intentions. And the government says that every official has the right to commit honest mistakes, So, if they are causing loss to the treasury, the finances of the government with their decisions, because of their honest mistakes, cases cannot be filed against them. Earlier, cases were filed PC Parekh, S.C. Gupta, all these officers of the rank of secretary. S.C. Gupta was arrested also. Why? Because even though he did not benefit himself in monetary terms, but he had caused loss to the exchequer with his decision of giving allocating the coal mines to the private sector, when public sector enterprises are already there demanding that it should be allocated to them. He did not benefit by himself, but it had caused loss to the exchequer. Now the government made key changes here. And then fourth thing is that the government has said that it will confiscate the assets of corrupt officials. This is good, confiscating the assets of corrupt officials. Now the problem is with all these three things, because in the name of protecting honest officials, government will be shielding only corrupt officials. Now it is almost impossible for any investigative agencies to convict public officials. Why? Because first of all, they won't get any permission. Government will never. CBI becomes completely redundant, because for everything, CBI has to approach the head of the department. If the head of the department rejects, CBI again has to approach the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has said that CBI can come to them and seeking permission to prosecute the officials, and they will give the permission. But is it possible for CBI to approach Supreme Court on a daily basis? Obviously not. This is also against the principles of natural justice. For example, if the head of the department himself is accused of corruption, here CBI going to the head of the department, requesting him, pleading with him, please give us permission to investigate you. Against the principles of natural justice. And then, retired officers, if they have committed a mistake, they must be prosecuted. Just because they retired from service does not mean that they are innocent. Why should you take permission? And the third one is this one. Who will decide what is a bona fide mistake and a crime committed with malified intention? How do we know? Who will decide that one? Very, very difficult. And that is the reason why it is said that the fight against corruption becomes almost ineffective because of these changes. That is what NGO activists have said. And how do we conclude? What do we conclude? How do we conclude? We say that instead of amending these kind of legislations, if the government is serious about fighting, if the government is sincere about fighting corruption, it must implement multidimensional reforms to ensure complete transparency and accountability in governance. Preventive measures are more important than curative measures. Next, lateral entry is necessary but not sufficient to ensure efficiency of civil servants. Discuss other reforms to make it efficient. So, what is the objective of lateral entry? What is the objective of lateral entry? To ensure competition for public offices from middle to higher levels within the civil services. Civil servants, they face competition only when they take the examination. This UPSC examination is the only time they have competition in their life. After getting into services, for the next 35 years, there is no competition. Why? Because their promotions are only on the basis of seniority, and they don't have any competition for offices, because after every 4 years you will be getting promotion. Automatically you will be getting promotion after every 4 years. There is no objective performance evaluation also. More importantly, there is no need for them to be efficient because they don't have any competition. That is the reason why the government has said that let us have lateral entry to ensure competition, to utilize the services of private sector and NGOs to make governance more efficient and accountable. But what we are saying is that definitely this lateral entry is a welcome step on the part of the government, but it is not sufficient to make civil servants efficient. So what else are the other reforms that we should undertake? What are the other reforms? First one is objective performance evaluation. And these things you will be studying in public administration also, so I don't have to focus much on these things. Objective performance evaluation. Second one is, moving from rank classification to position classification. It should have been done long time back, at least 70 years back. And all other countries in the world had shifted towards position classification except India. Third one is, scientific training. This scientific training is possible only when you move towards position classification. Fourth one is promotions strictly on the basis of merit, not on the basis of seniority, on the basis of merit. On the basis of merit. Next, accountability. Very, very important. Civil servants should be made accountable not to their superiors but to the people. They should be made accountable to citizens. Why? Because in our governance systems, civil servants are accountable to their superiors through hierarchy, written communication, rules and regulations, order, and so on and so forth. But they are not accountable to the people. They must be made accountable to the people for their performance with the help of social audits, e-governance, RTI, and so. Next, lateral entry to ensure competition. Because as I said that they have competition only till they get into services. After that there is no competition. Lateral entry. Next, very important, you must depoliticize the functioning of civil services. How to depoliticize the functioning of civil services? As you study in public administration, this ex post accountability should be replaced with ex ante accountability. Ex post accountability should be replaced with ex ante accountability. Since it is only 10 marker, this is more than enough. 15 marker also you can write the same thing. Pardon? Yes, you can include lateral exit also. That is, if they don't perform, they should be removed also. Recently the government has removed so many officers on corruption charges. The government has not removed any officer on the basis of inefficiency. All our civil servants are highly efficient. Next, yes. Rank classification and position classification that you will be studying in public administration. The only thing you have to remember is that moving from generalist civil services to specialists. That is what we say. That is what that is what is lateral exit. Temporarily you can go out and work in the private sector, NGOs, gain experience there, come back to the government, use that experience. Lateral exit. Two things here. One is permanent removal, asking you to go back, go to home because you are inefficient, removing. Second one is temporarily you can go to the private sector, gain experience and come back. Yes. That is what I said, lateral entry. In the beginning itself I talked about lateral entry. Yes. Yes, you write about lateral entry for 50 words, remaining 100 words will be this one. Next, department related committees are very effective instruments of ensuring accountability of executive towards the legislature. Every year you can see in the polity governance paper they are asking about these committees. One year they asked about public accounts committee, other year they asked about estimates committee. So this year it will be the turn of department related committees because there is no other committee left. We have one more committee, that is Committee on Public Sector Enterprises. Not much is there to be asked. So department related committees they can definitely ask this year. Yes, department related committees. When did they come into existence? They had come into existence in 1993. We had initially 17 department related committees and at present we have 24 attached to various ministries and departments. At present we have 24. What do they do? What do they do? First, they look at the demand for grants of each ministry. When the budget is presented, after the general discussion is over, then Parliament takes a break. During this break, these department related committees, what do? They scrutinize the demands for grants of all the ministries which are attached to them and then submit the report to the government regarding their recommendations, what they are recommending. That is what first one is, they look into the demand for grants. Second, what do? They will do only for a period of 1 month when the Parliament takes break. Rest of the 11 months, what do? They look at other aspects of the functioning of the ministries and departments. What are they? They look at the bills. They will examine the bills. Now this is what we call a Committee on Delegation and Delegated Legislation. That is what they look into the bills that are formulated by the ministries and departments and see whether those bills conform to the constitutional provisions or not, and they will also give their recommendations. They can also invite suggestions from the public also. That is what they do. They examine the bills and they also give their suggestions. Third, they will evaluate the performance of ministries and departments. They will evaluate the performance of ministries and departments. They will look into the performance of ministries and departments. The annual reports of ministries and departments will be evaluated by these department related committees. And finally, they will also give their suggestions to the ministries and departments regarding long-term policies of the ministries. That means that they perform what we call staff related functions, giving suggestions to the ministries regarding long-term policies. For example, Ministry of Human Resource Development, they will give their suggestions related to how to improve education. Ministry of Health, Ministry of Rural Development, Urban Development, Agriculture. they will give their suggestions, long-term policy suggestions. This is what they do, and by performing these functions, what we say is that they will try to ensure accountability of executive towards legislature. They will try to ensure accountability. Why? Because Parliament meets for only around 120 days in a year. For remaining 240 days, it is the department related committees which have to keep a close tab on the functioning of the ministries and departments, continuous accountability. Next, Indo-Japan relations have undergone significant changes in recent times. Yeah. Department related committees, any major suggestions? If you are asking uncomfortable questions, they don't, they have to say that they are performing really well. Beyond that, they did not as such. As I said, you are embarrassing me, asking very tough questions. They are supposed to do all these things, but they never do those things. Yeah, sometimes you can give the examples of, there's a ministers of agriculture and other committees related to this agriculture, finance and defense and international relations. They had given very good suggestions. Definitely can give. For example, the committee related to agriculture, they have given very good suggestions regarding use of BT cotton and all other GMC crops also, genetically modified crops, which have been accepted by the ministry also. They had given. If you go to PRS website, you will get these things. PRS, Parliamentary Research website, you will get definitely some, because it is better to write with some kind of facts. Next, and international relations, as we know, they are asking 4 questions, and we can easily predict again the questions. It is not at all difficult. I will be giving the important topics from IR also. If they are asking 4 questions, what is the point of reading 40 questions? Not required. You have to read only maximum 12-13 topics. They will give from only those 12-13 topics. Definitely this year it has been Indo-Japan. It has not been asked for a long time. Indo-Japan relations, forget about long time, it has not been asked in UPSC examination also. Indo-Japan. They have asked Indo-Israel, Indo-US, Indo-Russia, Indo-Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, even Sri Lanka also. But somehow Japan missed out on the radar of UPSC. Time has come. This year, every dog has its day. Japan will be having its day. Indo-Japan relations. Definitely they will ask. So when you talk about Indo-Japan relations, it can be asked either in section A or section B, whether it is 10 marker or 15 marker. So you have to talk about from different dimensions: political, economic, defense, then security, and then tripartite relationship between India, Japan, China or America. Indo-Japan relations in terms of through the prism of USA and China. You have to look at all these things. So if you look at political relations, obviously, in recent times, both India and Japan had come together to fight their common enemy. What is the common enemy? China. They had come together. That is the reason why, recently our Prime Minister went to Japan also. Our Prime Minister keeps on going to Japan all the time, and their PM also comes here. Mutual admiration. So in that joint statement, if you see that both the countries have given lot of emphasis to this political aspects of relations. So what the joint statement has mentioned is that both of them expressed their concern over this BRT, corridor of China, Belt and Road initiative of China. They said that this should be done in a more transparent manner. Right now China has complete hegemony over this BRT. It should be done in a transparent and participative manner by taking into consideration the problems, needs and demands of partnership countries. It cannot be done in a unilateral manner. Basically giving, giving a strong warning to China. Because if you look at this Belt and Road Initiative, old Silk Road, China is trying to capture both the sea route as well as the land route also. That is the reason why in recent times the major change that had taken place is that instead of Asia Pacific, they are calling it as Indo-Pacific. That means they recognize the fact that India is the most important partner. India is the most important player in the entire Asian continent to reduce the influence of China. Japan is very rich, but militarily Japan is not so powerful. It cannot withstand the might of China. That is the reason why all these countries in Southeast Asia, they are looking up to India to play the role of a big brother and counter Chinese aggression. And that is what Japan also wants to do, wants from India also. That is what you have to write as part of your answer. From a long-term perspective, India and Japan can see so much of similarity between themselves in terms of protecting the Indo-Pacific region and also restricting the influence of China. That is what you have to write. And then next thing is that strategic importance also. Right now, China, if you look at this, the entire again Silk Road, going through Myanmar to the East Asian countries also. So what Japan is trying to do is that Japan is trying to give a little bit more flexibility to India. That is the reason why Japan is taking a lot of interest in improving infrastructure in the northeast, constructing roads so that it can be connected directly to Myanmar, from Myanmar to rest of the Asian countries also. And this is helpful to India. It will benefit India in two different ways. One is it will improve infrastructure in the northeast, which will connect the northeast to the rest of India also. And most importantly, it will reduce the influence of China in the northeastern region also. Why? Because in northeastern part of the country, thanks to or because of lack of infrastructure facilities, China is trying to increase its influence. And that is where Japan is helping us. That is the reason why recently China has strongly warned Japan of not to unnecessarily interfere in infrastructure in the northeast, especially Arunachal Pradesh, which China thinks is part of their own country. This is what is strategic importance. And then, of course, India, China and Japan, all of them had come together and conducted military exercises also. What are those called? Malabar Exercises, I think. Yes. Yes. The objective of these exercises is to tell China that if any of these countries are attacked, rest of the countries will come to the rescue of the other country. That is the objective of conducting joint military exercises. And then, of course, Indo-Japan trade, it is very less compared to Indo-China trade. Through this, the government wants to expand the trade also. If you look at the statistics here, in 2018, 2017, the trade is only 15.71 billions. 15.71 billions. And they wanted to increase the volume of trade, to at least, I think by 2030, the objective is to increase it to at least, I think 75 billions. I don't exactly know the figure, but you can find out, to increase the volume of the trade. Because Indo-China trade is very high compared to Indo-Japan trade. Not only that, there is a strategic shift in terms of Japan's security and defense policy also. After India conducted nuclear tests in 1998, Japan stopped providing nuclear technology to India, even for peaceful purposes also. Now, Japan has agreed to provide the technology to India. There is a major shift, radical shift in Japan's policy. That also you can mention. The next thing you can talk about is the recent Japanese investments in India, especially in infrastructure, whether it is the bullet train, or other investments in infrastructure sector. You can mention all of them. Western dedicated flight corridor, that is the bullet train. Then Chennai Bengaluru industrial corridor. These are all the Delhi Metro project. Not only that, Japan also is providing financial aid to India. India is one of the countries which receives maximum amount of aid from Japan also. So, ultimately, this Indo-Japan relations are mutually beneficial to both the countries. There is so much of shared common interest, because of which the relationship has grown tremendously over a period of time. Japan Premier in the last 10 years or so, there are so many bilateral visits between Japan Prime Minister and India's Prime Minister, in spite of the fact that so many governments had come to power. Initially it was Manmohan Singh who started the relationship. Before that it was Look East policy of P.V. Narasimha Rao. Then it was further strengthened by Manmohan Singh. And then the present Prime Minister converted into Act East policy. You can write about all these things. I am definitely expecting Indo-Japan relations. What you can do on your part is collect all the statistics, because there is no point in dictating them in the class now. You can do those things. Next, discuss India's position regarding climate change negotiation as part of COP24. This summit was held in Paris in December. Yes? Catavas, before that, what happened in Catavas was nothing but an extension of what happened in Paris. You can say that, because the summit, in fact, this Catavas, there is not a term, right term, because in their language it is pronounced differently. So let us not look into all those kind of things. So we as Indians have the right to pronounce all the terms the way we want. What is the reason why English had left the country? They could not see in front of their eyes their language being murdered ruthlessly. We have so many English, Hindi plus English, Bengali plus English. Only Mamata Banerjee can understand. So, and then Tinglish, Tamil English. So, let us come back and look at what is this. What is India's position? There are 7 points which India has mentioned, stressed during this climate talks. First and foremost is that India has said that this Paris agreement should be non-negotiable. The agreement signed by the parties in the Paris summit in December 2018 should be non-negotiable. That means every party, every country which is part of the Paris summit must adhere by the agreement. And what is this basically agreement talks about? It talks about principles like equity, and common but differentiated responsibility. Common but differentiated responsibility and respective capabilities. Second thing it has said, India has said is that whatever be the outcome of this climate talks, it should be only on the basis of consensus. The outcome of the climate talks should be only on the basis of consensus. And no country can impose its conditions unilaterally on other countries. Third thing India has said is that India has made its position very clear. It has said that there is no question of abandoning poorer and weaker countries. India will always stand with poor and weaker nations, poor, marginalized and vulnerable communities and countries. We always stand with these communities. The next thing India has said is that we must find out common grounds, because these kind of climate negotiations can be derailed if countries insist on self-interest. That is the reason why we must find common grounds and must support each other. Next thing India has said is that Every country must reaffirm its commitment to reduce global temperatures. Next thing India has said is that developed countries must be more liberal. They must be more liberal in terms of financial and technical assistance. In terms of financial and technical assistance. And they must honor all the commitments they have made to the developing world before 2020. All the commitments they have made to the developing world before 2020. And they cannot be shifted post 2020. Some of the developing countries are saying that we will honor them, but it will take time for us. India has said that first, whatever the commitments you have made, saying that before 2020 they will give us this much amount of money. Give that money. You cannot postpone the things. And finally, next thing he talks about is that countries must show urgency in tackling climate change and global warming rather than ignoring them. Why India has said these things? Because the report of United Nations was blocked by countries like UK, US, Saudi Arabia, Russia. United Nations scientific report had blamed the developed world for global warming, saying that developed countries are not doing enough. This report was blocked by America, Russia, Saudi Arabia and other countries. So India has said that these kind of actions go against the spirit of Paris summit. That is what they have said. Next, come to the section B. Discuss the significance of 123rd Constitutional Amendment Bill in realizing the objectives of empowerment of backward castes. So, what is the significance of Constitutional Amendment Bill in realizing the objectives of backward castes? What is this Constitutional Amendment Bill talks about? It gives what? Constitutional status to Backward Caste Commission. It gives constitutional status to Backward Caste Commission, NCBC, National Commission for Backward Caste. What do you mean by that? Till then it was a statutory body, it was converted into a constitutional body at par with National Commission for Scheduled Castes and National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. Now, till now, National Commission for Scheduled Castes, till now, before the passage of the bill, National Commission for Scheduled Castes looked into the atrocities committed against other backward castes also. Other backward castes. What NCBC has done is that it has taken away the powers of NCSC and these powers are given to NCBC. These powers are given to NCBC. They are given to NCBC. And what are the functions of this NCBC? First and foremost, it will investigate and monitor. It will investigate and monitor how safeguards provided for backward castes It will investigate and monitor how safeguards provided for backward caste are implemented. Second, it will also investigate into specific complaints regarding violation of the rights of backward caste. It will also investigate into specific complaints regarding violation of the rights of backward caste. And it will also give recommendations to the respective ministries. Regarding the socio-economic development of backward caste. It will present annual reports to the President. And it has the powers of a civil court. That is, what are the powers of a civil court? They can summon people. They can demand any document, written document. They can also receive evidence. Can they arrest people? No. They can only impose fines. That is what we say powers of civil court. So, what is the reason why the government had given constitutional status to this backward caste commission? Why? Because in recent times there have been so many atrocities against backward caste. Till now, that is what the government says. Till now, all these were under the purview of Scheduled Caste Commission, NCSC. Now the government felt that this backward caste population has become so significant and large that it requires a separate body which enjoys the same status as National Commission for Scheduled Castes as well as National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. If you are giving constitutional status, it means that we can ensure their independent functioning. That is what you say. Beyond that, it does not have much of powers. That is what you will say. Again, as I said that, every year, you have one question related to these marginalized sections. Last year it was about National Commission for Women, and there are also questions about scheduled. Last year, I think, and I think there was a question about scheduled caste. Also some question. Exactly. Before that, it was the question was about NHRC, National Human Rights Commission. So this year this 123rd amendment is there, so we can expect that question. Next, in recent times there is a tendency to introduce crucial bills as mini bills to avoid parliamentary scrutiny. Suggest reforms to make the functioning of Rajya Sabha more effective to ensure proper checks and balances within the system. So what kind of reforms? The question is specific to Rajya Sabha, but not to the entire parliament. Why? Because as the question says that there is a tendency to introduce most of the crucial bills of the government as money bills. Why? Because in case of money bills, Rajya Sabha's powers are limited. They can only discuss and debate. They can keep the bill with themselves for a period of 14 days. After that, it is deemed to be passed by Rajya Sabha. And the government simply does not have any majority in Rajya Sabha till recently. So they introduced most of the bills as money bills. Even Aadhaar bill, even the Tribunals Act also, all of them were introduced as money bills to avoid legislative scrutiny by Rajya Sabha. So what can be done to make the functioning of Rajya Sabha effective? So what do we think? What kind of reforms do you think should be made? Our Rajya Sabha is modelled on the lines of the House of Elders, House of Lords, of United Kingdom. But House of Lords in United Kingdom, it mostly consisted of nominated members from the these feudal families, landlords. So that was the reason why House of Lords did not have any real powers. Whereas Rajya Sabha, the members of Rajya Sabha are elected indirectly. They were not nominated from feudal families. So obviously it is said that Rajya Sabha in India should have more powers than the House of Lords of United Kingdom. Especially from 1970s onwards, what we have seen is that political parties simply do not have majority in Rajya Sabha due to fragmentation of our political system from 1970s onwards. That is the reason why they are always making every effort to bypass Rajya Sabha. In recent times, the governments have used ordinance route to bypass Rajya Sabha. And what did the present government do? They have introduced all other bills as money bills. Aadhaar also was introduced as money bill. What is the justification given by the government? Aadhaar is mandatory for all developmental welfare schemes, the money for which comes from Consolidated Fund of India. So Aadhaar is a money bill. If that is the case, every bill is a money bill. Why? Because in every ministry when they are spending money, the money comes from Consolidated Fund of India under Article 110 of the Constitution. So every bill can be called a money bill. This is only what we say basically to avoid legislative scrutiny. So what are the solutions we can give here? Once you know the problem, you also know the solutions. Even in case of money bills also, Rajya Sabha should be given equal powers as that of Lok Sabha. It should be given equal powers as that of Lok Sabha. That is what first thing we say. Only the powers of Lok Sabha should be more than that of Rajya Sabha only in case of one thing. What is that? Majority on the floor of the house should be tested only in Lok Sabha. The survival of the government should be tested only through Lok Sabha. Otherwise, Rajya Sabha should have equal powers. That is what it has been suggested. Including money bills also, they must be passed with a simple majority in Rajya Sabha so that there will be consensus among the political parties. Otherwise, it is resulting in executive dictatorship. Next, what are the other suggestions? Rajya Sabha should also be allowed to have select committees of parliament to look into the bills. Right now what is happening is that, if a bill is passed in Lok Sabha and goes to Rajya Sabha, if a bill is passed in Lok Sabha and goes to Rajya Sabha is not allowed to refer the bill to a select committee of parliament. That is what happened with all these bills. That is what happened with the recent triple talaq bill. No, what we are saying is that the bill is passed in Lok Sabha. It goes to Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha wants that the bill be referred to a select committee of parliament. Let the select committee discuss the bill and then vote on it. At present, the provision is that if the bill is passed already in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha cannot again, Rajya Sabha is not normally allowed to refer the matter. In case of triple talaq bill, twice, since the government did not have majority earlier, they had no option but to refer the bill to the select committee of parliament. Now the government has got majority on the floor of the house. The government has said that they will not refer the bill to send the bill to the select committee of parliament in case of triple talaq. The situation has changed. So what is happening is that Rajya Sabha becomes nothing but an extension of Lok Sabha without having any independent existence. So what we are saying here is that, are you getting the point here? Yes or no? No. Yes. Yes or no? See, if you look at the passage of bills, the bill can be introduced either in Lok Sabha or in Rajya Sabha. It can be introduced. If it is passed in Lok Sabha, it will go to Rajya Sabha. If it is introduced in Rajya Sabha, it will go to Lok Sabha. Now, if the bill is introduced in Rajya Sabha, the members can demand that the bill be referred to select committees of Parliament. They will discuss the bill, they will give their recommendations. If the bill is introduced in Lok Sabha, members can demand that the bill be referred to the select committees. Now, the bill is passed in Lok Sabha, it is sent to the Rajya Sabha. It is sent to the Rajya Sabha. Till now, what is the situation in Rajya Sabha? The government did not have majority in Rajya Sabha. They could not get most of the bills passed, whether it is land acquisition bill or triple talaq bill or so many other bills also. So that is the reason why the government was forced to refer these bills to the select committees, because they did not have majority. Now, in case of a triple talaq bill, what happened? The members, all the opposition members wanted the bill to be referred to select committee of Parliament. Let the select committee look at it, into it and come out with their recommendations. The government has said that they will not do it because they already have majority. Now, what is happening is that with the government having majority in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha is losing its relevance, independence and identity also. So, how to make Rajya Sabha more effective? Got it? How to make Rajya Sabha more effective? Even if the bill is passed in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha must be given the option of referring the bill to the select committee, so that there will be more legislative scrutiny. If you look at the recent session of the Parliament, the government says that it is the most productive session in the last 20 years or so, because it has passed 30 important bills. What is the other side of it? What is the other side of it? Out of these 30 bills, 25 bills were introduced and passed in this session itself without giving ample time for the legislature to discuss, debate, without the bill being referred to the select committees. On the other hand, you take the case of United Kingdom. You have the introduction, first reading, second reading, sending it to the, every bill will be inevitably sent to the select committee of Parliament, and they will discuss it, they will come out with their suggestions, again it will be introduced. There will be a lot of what you call legislative scrutiny. Here, we don't have any legislative scrutiny, especially when it comes to Rajya Sabha. And that is the reason why, one of the suggestions that we are giving here is that let Rajya Sabha also have the freedom to send a bill to the select committee, even if it is passed by Lok Sabha also, so that it can have more legislative scrutiny. It will have more legislative scrutiny. That is what we are saying here. Okay. Next, what are the other reforms that we can give? Any matter related to the states in India. For example, all those constitutional amendment bills related to GST and which are related to the items in the state list, it must be introduced in the Rajya Sabha, so that Rajya Sabha means the Council of States, so that it reflects the concerns and demands of the state governments also. If they are introduced in Lok Sabha, the problem is that it shows that the government is not really interested in consultations or discussions with the federal units. Rajya Sabha is the forum to protect the interests of the states. So, if any item related to the state list be introduced in Rajya Sabha, that is what we are, another suggestion that we are giving. So, this is what you can write for these kind of questions. I don't know whether they will ask or not, but definitely this year there can be one question about a Parliament. Sustainable development goals, including providing safe drinking water to every citizen of the country. SDG. SDG has 17 goals. One of them is providing safe drinking water. Discuss the issues relating to this objective and suggest measures. Obviously, this sustainable development, this water crisis the country is facing, definitely this year it can be asked in our all 4 papers of general studies. In urban development, the crisis that are faced by urban cities. On the one hand, Mumbai floods. On the other hand, Chennai water crisis. You can see the excess here, other place, complete, scarcity. So they can ask the question in paper 1. It can be asked as part of sustainable development goals in Indian polity and governance. It will definitely be asked in paper 3 as part of disaster management. Can be asked as a case study in ethics paper also. I won't be surprised if it is not asked for essay as part of water crisis in India. A very, very important topic. So I expect you to collect all the information about the present water crisis in India. All the factual information from all dimension, from political dimension, from administrative dimension, from economic dimension, from cultural and social dimension. Why? Because rich people in India, I want you to read P. Sainath articles. There was a very good debate some time back on CNN IBN, and P. Sainath, one of the topmost journalists of our country, he had written extensively about this water crisis. Please go through these articles, because this is where I can see at least 200 marks this year in your all 5 papers of GS. You can ignore this. If poor people don't have access to drinking water, it is fine. But if you ignore this, it will be problematic for you. Okay. One person's problem is another person's opportunity. So make sure that you are collecting all the information about this. In the regional variations, the urban availability of per capita availability of water for people in urban areas compared to people in rural areas. Piped water supply, urban areas compared to rural areas. The next, gender also, and within urban areas, rich people and poor people, and then different usages of water, agriculture, non-agriculture, agriculture and non-agriculture, and then the affordability, cost of water. For example, if you see this piece of article, he says that in Maharashtra the government is supplying water to these liquor industries, beer factories, 1 liter per 1 rupee. Whereas ordinary people have to buy the same 1 liter of safe drinking water in areas of Marathwada at 200 rupees. If you have to quote these kind of statistics when you are writing answers. Per capita availability of water in India has come down drastically from the days of independence till now. Okay. Per capita consumption, availability as well as consumption also has come down. And then India, why we are facing so much of water crisis? 85% of groundwater is used only for agricultural purposes. And why? Because again, give the example of Maharashtra. This Marathwada region is facing severe water crisis. In spite of the fact that the region is facing severe water crisis, farmers still go for these cash crops, sugar cane, and sugar cane, rice, and wheat are the crops which demand huge amount of water. When Maharashtra Chief Minister was asked, what can the farmers do? I cannot ask them to change the cropping pattern overnight. Let them take the water. And ordinary people don't have any water. Why? Because these sugarcane farmers, a very big, powerful pressure group in Maharashtra. All these sugarcane mills owners and sugarcane farmers are the ones who decide electoral outcomes. That is the reason why government cannot do much about this. And take the case of Chennai, a typical Indian city. In spite of the fact that Chennai receives huge amount of rainfall, according to the statistics of the government, India uses only 6% of its rainwater, preserves 6%. In case of Western countries, it is 250%. We know we don't even preserve our rainwater, fresh rainwater, and everything will be going into the literally drains. We use only. That is the reason why Chennai is a place which receives very good rainfall because coastal area. But still it is facing so much of severe water crisis for the simple reason that the governments, the local self-governments simply did not focus on conservation of water. On the other hand, what happened? In 1950s, in 1950s, Chennai had more than 20,000 lakes. It had come down to less than 1500 now. That is where the problem is. You have to write about all these things. And obviously, what are the solutions? The solutions are very simple once you know the problems. First one is, you must preserve rainwater. Very, very important. Rainwater harvesting, very, very important. For all the new constructions, it should be made mandatory that they must have this measures put in place. Rainwater harvesting. Next thing is, you must reduce the consumption of water, especially in agriculture sector. Agriculture sector. How can you reduce consumption of water in agriculture sector? By imposing charges, water charges. Almost every state in India gives free water to farmers. And it is said that, P. Sainath, he says that in most of the states, groundwater resources had almost reached zero level. So there is no question of again replenishing groundwater tables in most of the states. They have to depend only on rainwater. Why? Because ruthless exploitation of groundwater. In those states which still are there, the government must take measures. So you must impose water charges on farmers. Third thing is, you must change the cropping pattern. Cropping pattern. We must move towards less water consuming crops. Next, what else can the government do? Next, what else can the government do? Especially in rural areas, the government should focus on pipe waters being proposed through taps, water taps and water pipes. Only now, in rural areas, only 30% is connected. 30% of the households are given water through taps. You must make it 100%. So that safe drinking water can be given to them. Next, what else the government should do? Next thing is that behavioral changes, as economic survey always talks about. You must change the behavior of the people with regard to water by creating awareness among them about the significance of water. Already they knew it, you must bring about behavioral changes also. Why? Because in urban areas, among rich people, there is so much of wastage of water. So much of wastage of water. You must bring in behavioral changes. In states like Marathwada, in the places like Marathwada or Rajasthan or Tamil Nadu, a rural woman, she has to travel at least 10-15 kilometers to get one pot of water, one bucket of water. So you must make people aware about the scarcity, the problems faced by others. Next, what else can be done to improve drinking water, safe drinking water? Power plants. I think I have seen there is a photograph wherein people are trying to get water from air conditioners. Air conditioners, when they are working, they release some water. That water is being used nowadays by people. You can imagine the kind of scarcity that they have. In Chennai, all the restaurants were closed. Metro stations were closed. Why? Because there is no water in the toilets. Restaurants were closed because there is no water to serve to the customers also. The situation had become so severe. So that is where you have to talk about long-term measures. It is said that by 2030, 50% of India would face water crisis. 50%. Severe water crisis. The government has to come out with short-term, medium-term as well as long-term solutions. And what did the government do? What did the government do? They immediately came out with an excellent solution. They changed the name of the ministry. Ministry of Water Resources was renamed as Jal Shakti. It is more than enough. You know, I mean, incredible solutions. You know, that is what the government do. And then next thing is that these rivers are getting polluted. You know, the government should focus on making these rivers again more more lively and dynamic. This Namami Gange and all these kind of programs are there. The government is putting huge amount of money, thousands of crores of rupees, without knowing exactly where it is going. It is going into the drain only. That is where the problem. Outlays should be transformed into outcomes. This can be done only with the help of local people. As long as it remains a bureaucratic exercise without the involvement of beneficiaries, these kind of programs can never be successful. Next thing the government can think about is interlinking of river waters also. Interlinking of rivers also. Interlinking of rivers. So this is what you have to write for this question. But again, we will discuss again, again as part of essay also. I will definitely be giving this as essay also, because definitely it will come. When they are coming, these kind of essays out of 125, you must be scoring minimum 80 marks. Very, very important. If you are not writing good essay about water crisis, you will face a crisis. I am not talking about water. So that is very, very important. Next, looking back to our past experience, the fear that emergency provisions can be misused at times have proved to be right and wrong at other times. Discuss with examples. Again, if you look at the polity governance paper in the last 2-3 years, they are focusing more on static aspects of polity. Last year the question was about finance commission, powers of finance commission, and and then last year the question was also about, in section A they asked about financial emergency, section B they asked about finance commission. Static aspects. So that is the reason why I gave this question, because the static aspects, emergency provisions. So what are the emergency provisions we are talking about? What are the emergency provisions that we are talking about here? Article 352, 356 and 360. So it says that they can be misused. It is proved to be right at times and wrong at other times. So we have to talk about the instances where it has been misused. Article 352. For the first time, Article 352 was imposed in Indochina War 1962. Later in 1965 and later in 1972. And more controversial in 1975. When it was imposed in 1962, 65 and 72, it was imposed for right reasons, external aggression. And it did not impact the people much, because the government did not curtail the fundamental rights of the citizens. It did not change center-state relations also. Still we had federalism. And fundamental rights of people were not curtailed. But 1975 emergency proved that emergency provisions can be misused also. Under Article 352, before 44th Amendment, emergency can be imposed for external aggression as well as internal disturbances. In 1975, Indira Gandhi imposed emergency for internal disturbances. The reason given by the government was that Jayaprakash Narayanan, who started the movement, anti-corruption movement in India, had given a call for the army to revolt, saying that army should be patriotic and they should revolt against the government, the dictatorial government of Indira Gandhi. On the basis of that, Indira Gandhi had imposed emergency, saying that there are internal disturbances in the country. There are so many forces within the country who are who are hell bent on destabilizing the country. So that is the reason why they were imposing emergency. And during emergency, Indian could see the dictatorship of Indira Gandhi, wherein parliament was completely subdued. So was judiciary. So were opposition parties. and so was press also. There were many instances. There was a very significant event in 1975. For those 19 months of emergency, fundamental rights of the people were ruthlessly exploited in the name of safety and security of the nation. And then talk about Article 356. What did Sarkar Commission say? Between 1967 and 1989, Sarkar Commission has said that this Article 356 has been imposed for more than 100 times. And it has said that this imposition of Article 356, mostly it was used for political purposes. Mostly it was used for political purposes. That is to defeat the opposition party in the states, or to bring down opposition ruled state governments. There were many instances of misuse of Article 356. And the third one is Article 360, financial emergency. Article 360, financial emergency. It has not been used till now. So there is no case of either use or misuse or abuse. You have to say that one. And that is the reason why in recent times we have taken measures to reduce the misuse of the provisions related to emergency. 44th Amendment, it has replaced the word internal disturbances with armed rebellion. And emergency, it required only simple majority. 44th Amendment has said that this emergency has to be ratified by both the houses of parliament with a special majority. 2/3 of people, members voting and present. Special majority. For repeal of emergency, it requires only simple majority. And next thing is that in case of Article 356, presidential activism, judicial activism have ensured that the misuse of Article 356 is reduced drastically. Presidential activism as well as judicial activism. Next, grievance redressal mechanism continues to be one of the weakest aspects of our governance. Discuss the existing measures and suggest reforms. So the question is, again this is part of governance. We can expect these things. The question is, why grievance redressal mechanism continues to be one of the weakest aspects of our governance? The most important reason why, because India has inherited colonial structures wherein the Britishers made it deliberately sure that bureaucracy is never made accountable to the people. Wherein the Britishers made deliberately sure that ordinary citizens will never have an effective grievance redressal mechanism. Complete absence of grievance redressal mechanism. Why? Because it was a colonial administration whose objective was to serve the interests of the imperial masters but not the citizens. After independence, we continued with the same structures, because of which grievance redressal mechanism continues to be the weakest aspects of our Indian governance. Now, what are the existing mechanisms to address the grievances of citizens? What are the existing mechanisms? What do we have now to address the grievances of citizens? Pardon? First of all, judiciary. You are forgetting judiciary. We have the 5 different writs are there: habeas corpus, mandamus, certiorari, quo warranto, and last one, I told you, prohibition. Yes, these 5 existing mechanisms are there. And what is the problem with them? What is the problem with our judiciary? Judicial process in India is highly complicated, cumbersome and time consuming. That is where the problem. And how did we try to overcome that? With PIL, public interest litigations. Our judiciary has removed locus standi through public interest litigations so that it can move closer to the victims. Recently, the Chief Justice of India had, Supreme Court had come out with a sensational judgment in this Unnao case, where this BJP MLA was involved in rape of a minor girl. The family had written a letter to the Chief Justice, and Chief Justice taken that letter as a complaint and came out with sensational judgment. That is what is called PIL. The Chief Justice had scolded his administration also, saying that why you have not shown me this letter long time back. So judiciary is trying to overcome the weaknesses in its own functioning. That is the reason why Supreme Court has said that the victim should be given monetary compensation. The case has been transferred out of Uttar Pradesh. CBI was given the investigation, and Supreme Court has clearly instructed them to complete the investigations in a specific period of time also. Grievance redressal mechanisms. Next, what are the other grievance redressal mechanisms that we have apart from citizen charters? Sorry, apart from Supreme Court for ordinary citizens. What are the other grievance redressal mechanisms we have? What do we have? If I have problem with government or government departments, what other grievance redressal mechanisms I have? You have vigilance cells within the departments, vigilance cells for misuse of power, vigilance cells within the departments. Now in recent times, we also come out with so many reforms in the form of RTA, so that we will come to know who is responsible for giving me ration card, who is responsible for giving me driving license. I will file RTA application and I can make that person accountable. And recent times we also have come out with Public Service Delivery Acts to ensure accountability and to ensure better grievance redressal mechanisms. Next, we also have alternative dispute resolution mechanisms in the form of Lok Adalats. Lok Adalats. And then in recent times we had come out with Lokayuktas and Lokpals. Lokayuktas and Lokpals. And other governance reforms like e-governance, through which you receive the complaints. The department can receive the complaints through e-governance, through their web portals. Then we have citizen charters and social audits along with RTA. Pardon? What is it? CP Gram. What is it? Even if you want to include, this Pragati also, the recent initiative of the central government, Pragati. What is this Pragati? Our Prime Minister comes out with attractive acronyms for good things, proactive governance and timely implementation. So you can talk about all these things. And after writing about all these things, in spite of all these reforms, still grievance redressal mechanism continues to be the weakest aspect. Why? Because what is required is removing colonial structures and colonial laws, rules and regulations. Removing colonial structures and colonial laws, rules and regulations. So what are the solutions that we can offer here? One day in a week should be reserved by all government departments to receive only complaints for the people. One day in a week should be reserved to receive only complaints and to hear public grievances, right from the lowest level to the topmost level. Second thing is that there must be timely disposal of all these cases, timely disposal of all these cases. Third thing is, importance should be given to alternative dispute resolution mechanisms like lok adalats to reduce the burden on judiciary. Alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. Next thing is making social audit compulsory. Social audits and citizen charters compulsory. Next one is single window clearance. Single window clearance. Next one is giving publicity to the grievances of the people. Giving publicity to the grievances of the people, so that officials can act on them in a time bound manner. Next one is punishing those officials who are lax, who are inefficient. That is what we can write for this question. Again, we can expect these kind of questions. Next one is discuss how e-governance can be used to realize the objectives of citizen-centric administration with relevant examples. Every year, as you can see, there is one question on e-governance in the last 5 years. In the last 6 years, there is always one question on e-governance. So this year, we can have this question: how e-governance can be used to achieve the objectives of citizen-centric governance. What do we mean by citizen-centric governance? What do you mean by that? Citizens should be able to participate in policy formulation, in policy implementation, in policy feedback and review. That is what we call citizen-centric governance. So how e-governance can be used as an instrument in realizing the objectives of citizen-centric governance? As we say, e-governance does not only mean e-government. E-governance is much more than e-government. E-government means what? Replacing computers with, replacing manual work with computers. That is what is called e-government. E-governance is much more than that one. E-governance means decentralization. E-governance means reducing the number of hierarchical levels within the government. E-governance means ensuring transparency in administration. E-governance means it means ensuring opportunities for consultation with the stakeholders in terms of policy formulation. E-governance means single window clearance by reducing red tapeism. E-governance also means reducing the interaction between the citizens and the government, which is the major source of corruption. Why there is so much of corruption in our country? Because of the personal interaction between the stakeholders, that is the people and the bureaucracy. This personal interaction gives lot of scope for corruption. That is the reason why recently, if you see income tax department, what did they do? They have almost made the interaction between the income tax officials and the income tax payers. Yes, they have introduced e-assessment. There is no scope. Already our income tax IRS IT officers are under severe depression also, because their major source of corruption is taken away. Don't worry, they can find other ways. They are very highly creative people, so you don't have to worry about them. So coming back here, how it can be done, how e-governance can be used. The same thing as we have mentioned, we talked about earlier, citizen charters. These citizen charters should be formulated in the local languages, and they must be given a lot of publicity using mobile governance. All the stakeholders must have the full information about the citizen charters, the services to be provided by the concerned departments. And then in terms of implementation, we can use e-governance. For example, JAM, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile. Interlink all of them and ensure that the benefits are given to the people on real-time basis. Then, again social audits. These social audits it can be given a lot of publicity through e-governance, so that it encourages the stakeholders to participate in evaluating the performance of the ministries and departments. Next, as we have discussed, effective implementation of RTI, so that that is what we say, section 4 of RTI should be implemented, wherein the government departments must in a voluntary manner put up all the information available at their disposal with the people to ensure complete transparency in governance. Similarly, you can talk about as part of e-governance initiatives, you can talk about these vigilance cells also. When they receive the applications of complaints against officials, they must be put on the websites along with the time which is specified for them to come out with the investigations, so that there is accountability within the system. E-governance can be used to achieve the objectives of citizen-centric governance. Very, very important. This year I am expecting this question, because they have asked all the questions related to e-governance. The only question that is left is this one. Next year onwards, they will start the same cycle, go back to 6 years back what they have asked and repeat the questions. Next, the issue of development of women is closely related to the issue of development, women in development. How can women become equal partners in the process of socio-economic development? If you see the question papers of polity governance, what UPSC is doing is that they are taking the questions from public administration, Indian administration, repeating them in polity governance. For example, NHRC was asked, next year it was asked in polity governance, and then similarly public accounts committee was asked in Indian administration, repeated in polity governance papers. Almost if you look at it, last 6 years of Indian administration and polity governance papers, all the questions are repeated with a 1 year time lag, or immediately the next year also. So definitely you can expect these kind of questions, because they have already asked all the questions related to self-help groups. Now they cannot ask any questions, so they have to ask something more. So they cannot do anything. They cannot do anything going beyond Indian administration question papers. That is the reason why I gave this question. This was asked in your Indian administration last year, and I won't be surprised if the same question is repeated with the same spelling mistakes also, to ensure consistency. So the issue of women, development of women is closely related to the issue of women in development. So what we are saying here, what is the issue that we are talking about here? It says that women and development is related to women in development. That is what it is saying. Empowerment of women is possible, development of women is possible only when they become active partners in development process. Why this question was asked? Why this question was asked? Because if you look at the whole evolution of development administration in India since independence, women were never treated as equal partners in the development process. They were never treated as equal partners in the development process. How they were treated? They were treated as a passive outside beneficiaries. They were treated as passive outside beneficiaries of a development process. That means as and when growth and development takes place, women also become incidental and accidental beneficiaries. They become incidental and accidental beneficiaries. That is what we say. That is the reason why women empowerment, women development had not taken place. And what is the solution? The solution is that they cannot be the beneficiaries, they should be the catalysts. They must be the game changers. They should be the catalysts in development process. It means they must initiate the development process rather than becoming beneficiaries of it. They must initiate. That is what we call women in development. They must initiate the development process. How can they initiate the development process? What kind of conditions that are necessary for women to become proactive in initiating the development process rather than becoming incidental beneficiaries? What can be done? How it can be done? Of course, we talk about self-help groups, wherein they come together in a voluntary manner, set up a self-help group to ensure their economic independence. Then what else can be done? To ensure that women become active partners, proactive, not active, proactive partners in development process. What else can be done? Reservations. We'll talk about reservations. Reservations in civil services also? 50%? Why? There is criminal silence in the class here. 50% reservation. Let us start with civil services. Then we can go to Lok Sabha. Then we talk about United Nations also later. Right? So let us not get into sensitive issues. Here by talking about reservations, you are hurting the sentiments of so many people here. Next, so what else can be done? How can we encourage women to become partners? First, education. You must focus on their education. Next, safety and security. You must ensure their safety security, both within the houses and in offices also, public spaces. Then, next one is, next one is equal pay, equal work. Equal pay, equal work. You must ensure that they receive the same kind of salaries as men. Next one is, by breaking a glass ceiling that exists in the private sector. Next one is by making the work gender neutral. Work should be made gender neutral. Otherwise, only some professions are reserved only for men, wherein women are not given any opportunities. Next, you talk about reservations. Reservations. Next, you talk about reservations. Next one is gender budgeting. Making gender budgeting compulsory. Making this gender budgeting compulsory for all developmental and welfare schemes. Gender budgeting compulsory. You can write these things. This is how you will ensure women in development. Yeah. Pardon? In the? No. What do you mean by that? Ensuring that more opportunities are provided for women in the private sector to reach top level positions. How many multinational companies in India, how many big companies in India are headed by women? If you look at the finance minister recently addressed the captains of Indian industry, 99% of them were men. The only woman was finance minister. Okay. So, yeah, it can be. That's why reservations in the government. Okay. We will give 50% reservations for women in civil services. Right? Next, local self-governments in India are local in form, but state and central in content. Discuss. This is the statement of Second Administrative Reforms Commission. So again, every year you have question about local self-government. There will be there. They will ask the same questions, and they have to write the same answers. Why there are problems with local self-governments in India. Why they have not been truly effective. You talk about the same problems. First one is functions. Second one is functionaries. Third one is finances. And the fourth one is we talk about this devaluation index, which measures the performance of the state governments in terms of functions, functionaries and finances. Next, what are the other problems of local self-governments? Here, first, second, third, fourth. Next, problems of local self-governments are this tendency of the central government to come out with more centrally sponsored schemes. When there are more centrally sponsored schemes, local self-governments become nothing but the line agencies responsible for implementation. They are not transformed into self-governing institutions. More centrally sponsored schemes. Next problem is with local self-governments. The next problem is this coming up of so many community-based organizations in both urban and rural areas. Community-based organizations in both urban and coming up in an emergence of community-based organizations, CBOs, in urban and rural areas. For example, in rural areas, water users association consisting of farmers, they are trying to solve their problems among themselves without approaching the local bodies. In urban areas, resident welfare associations like this. They are undermining the credibility of local self-governments. Yeah, parastatal bodies, you can talk about them. NGOs, you can talk about all of them. Next problem with local self-governments is capacity building of local self-governments. The question was asked last year. Capacity building. They simply do not have the enough capabilities to carry on with the functions that have been given to them. Why? Because of illiteracy, ignorance and lack of experience. The government did not focus on improving the capabilities of local self-governments. Next problem is still decentralized planning. Decentralized planning is yet to become a reality. Is yet to become a reality. Out of 29 states, only 14 states had established DPCs, district planning committees, but none of them are functioning, making local self-governments completely ineffective. Making local self-government completely ineffective. Next one is still bureaucratic rule. Even though municipalities are there, even though municipal corporations are there, still they are ruled with the help of bureaucracy, the commissioners and everyone else. After writing all these things, you can talk about the solutions also. They are not that much difficult. Next, Africa remains a very important ally for India since the times of non-aligned movement. Discuss recent developments to make this relationship stronger. Indo-African relationship, I don't think it was asked in recent times. I think 2-3 years back they have asked, I think 3 years back. Yes, so maybe they can ask in an Indo-African relationship. Again, so when you talk about Indo-African relationship, you talk about go back to the freedom movement. Go back to the freedom movement. The ties are emotional, because both India and Africa were under the rule of the imperial rulers. So we could empathize with their problems. So is the case with them also. And then after independence, most of these African countries had become part of NAM, non-aligned movement, started by Jawaharlal Nehru and other global leaders, otherwise known as beggars movement. All the beggars coming together, that is why it is called beggars movement. Yes, what is the objective of non-aligned movement? What is non-alignment means? They will not align themselves either with Russia or US, because beggars must have universal rights. They must have the right to beg either from Russia or America. It cannot be restricted. That is the reason why the big beggar, Jawaharlal Nehru, was given the you know, responsibility of leading the movement because of his experience in begging. 1960s, when India faced severe food crisis, Nehru went to America. Nehru met the American officials and got food also, under PL 480 agreement. Because of the capabilities of Nehru, he was made the head of this movement. So, NAM, you talk about this, but otherwise, till 1990s, we have not focused much on African countries in terms of our trade and everything else. In terms of trade and everything else, India did not focus much on African continents. Again, we started focusing on African continents only after 2000s, after liberalization. We have realized the potential for economic cooperation. We have realized the potential for economic cooperation. And in recent times, India has emerged as the single fourth largest trading partner of Africa. India has emerged as the fourth largest trading partner of Africa, behind European Union, China, European Union and USA. And at present, the relationship is focusing more on trade relationship, how to improve the volume of trade. And of course, India is also, fighting, for democracy in most of these African nations. And we also have this Indo-Africa Forum Summit, which is held after every 3 years. The first meeting was held in 2008. Then India is also providing aid to African countries. One beggar supporting other beggar. Beggars must support each other, right? India is also providing aid to African countries. This aid in the form of technical cooperation. It has given around $63 million in aid to African countries. $63 million in aid to African countries. But there are still problems. What are the problems here in the Indo-African relationship?
They are not responding as we are giving aid to,
Exactly. See, the problem here is that India still is not focusing much on Africa the way it is focusing on America, European Union, or even East Asia. We are not focusing much. And this India's inactive foreign policy had resulted in replacing India as the most important trading partner of African countries. China has replaced India as the most important trading partner after African countries. China is also providing liberal financial aid to African countries, especially to improve infrastructure. Not only that, China is also constructing has taken up construction of so many infrastructure projects in African countries also. It has taken up construction of so many infrastructure projects also in African countries. So what do we say is that India must show proactiveness in terms of its African policy. Like look east, the government should also come out with some more proactive policy related to African Union. That is what you have to talk about. Otherwise, the void left by India will be filled in by China. Even as part of this Belt and Road Initiative also, African continent is covered by China. That is what you have to talk about. Yeah. Yes, what? Yes, that is what, we have to make this relationship stronger, not only from India's point of view, but from the point of view of India's neighbor China. If we don't go there, China will be there. That is what we are saying. Next, United Nations reforms are longer overdue. Discuss the need for reforms and how India should protect its own interests. Did they ask UN reforms in the recent times? 2015. So 2019, as I said, a 4-year cycle. No, they have to ask something. 1 year they have to ask United Nations. Next year they have to WTO. Last year they have already asked WTO. And then they will ask about the European Union, IMF, World Bank, or a BIMSTEC, or any of the institutions. Now, once the cycle is over, again go back to United Nations. The good thing about international relations is that you can easily predict the 4 questions. Maybe by next week I will give you important questions of IR as well as economy. It is not like 200, 300 questions. Then there is no point in giving the questions also if I am giving 200, 300 topics. You cannot read it also. It will be not more than 30, 40 topics. Only thing is that, as I said, that UPSC will show a lot of creativity by rearranging the questions in different order. Otherwise, they will have to ask the same questions. The good thing about mains is that we can predict the question paper very easily. So coming back here, these United Nations reforms, most of them. What are they? First one is Security Council reform. Second one is Secretariat transparency reforms. Reforms in the functioning of the Secretariat. Secretariat transparency reform. Third one is democracy reform to ensure democracy in the functioning of United Nations. Fourth one is to ensure diversity, to protect diversity in United Nations. Diversity. Next one is financial reforms. Financial reforms. Next one is creation of United Nations Parliamentary Assembly, like our Parliament. What it has been suggested is that let the people of all the countries in the world elect members to United Nations Parliament, so that it will become the legislative body of United Nations. United Nations Parliamentary Assembly. Next one is, it is like, our Parliament, we elect our members of Parliament. Similarly, in every country, where, the country is a part of United Nations member General Assembly, let the people elect members to the United Nations Parliamentary Assembly directly, the people of that particular country. But this is the reform they are suggested. You are always asking right questions, but to a wrong person. I am not the present the head of United Nations. I am not even a citizen of United Nations. Okay. So right now General Assembly is there, but the members of General Assembly are nominated by countries. Now to make it more democratic, let them be elected. That is what we are saying, which is right also. So no problem. Next one is creation of United Nations Environment Organization also. We need a separate environment organization. Why? Because to protect the environment, which is very, very crucial. Because these Paris summits and all these things are not successful, let there be a permanent secretariat for this environment organizations, which will ensure that the countries which are part of this Paris summit and other summits must adhere to the to the guidelines set by these summits. That is what we say. And what about India? What is India's opinion about all these things? India is in favor of all these reforms. Only thing is that India is always talking about protecting its own interests. For example, Security Council. There must be expansion in the Security Council. India is saying two things. Either completely remove Security Council, the permanent members, remove all of them, take away all their veto powers, or make India a permanent member of Security Council. We will tolerate inequality as long as it is beneficial to us. Otherwise make it equal to everyone. Remove the veto power of the Security Council members. That is what we are saying. Similarly, India is in favor of all these other reforms also. Transparency. There is so much of secrecy in the functioning of United Nations. There is a lot of corruption also in the works of. There is a lot of corruption also in the works of United Nations. That is the reason why we are talking about transparency. Democracy reforms. United Nations is dominated by Western countries, with African countries and Asian nations not getting in a proper hearing also within the United Nations. That is the reason why we talk about democracy reforms. And we are also talking about financial reforms, because still America is contributing maximum to the United Nations, and America is also controlling United Nations. Let other countries also contribute and reduce the influence of America. So we are talking about all these reforms also. So this is what you have to write for this question paper, and most of the questions can be asked for this year. If not the same, similar question can be asked. Yeah. But it does not have any real powers. Like United Nations Human Rights Organization and other auxiliary agencies of United Nations, there must be separate secretariat, permanent secretariat, for environmental issues. That is what we are saying. India is in support of this kind of institutions, because they must be given the responsibility of ensuring that the member countries would fulfill their obligations which they have committed as part of this summit. So this is what the question paper. And next week also I think we have test. No, there is no test next week. Okay, then what I will do is that before next week, that is before Saturday, I will give you important questions for economy and IR, if possible internal security and disaster management also, because they are asking internal security and disaster management combined together, they are asking 5 questions. There is no point in reading 50 questions. So we will see the important ones. By next week I will give you. And let me also look at essays also, important topics. We can always predict them. So that is more than enough. Then we can meet as and when the next test is there, whatever may be the date, right?